the very rare in-person edition of the College Countdown podcast with Josh Neighbors and Jack Allen. It's a Thursday. We're using your computer. We're in our My Radio Station studio, and we have an exciting show. We actually have an Arkansas-related thing that's gone national, which our big talk today is, how honest do you want your AD to be? Which is a good question. And then also we're about to talk about our man at JKS, Jaron Keawe-Sagapolutele, and the Calgorithm, the Cal Bears. It's been talked about a bunch, but a really good chance. And we'll look at some other schools that are part of the Easy Schedule Brigade that could have cakewalks to the college football playoff. And then we'll look at some lines from Draftkings. I'm at CC Podcast JN. You are at
Jack Allen TV.
There you go, Jack Allen TV. That's how you find us. So Jack, we've had a wild week in Arkansas on the college sports side of things, because this week we had Hunter Yurakchek, the AD at Arkansas. He made some comments, and we will show you these comments. I pulled the video. He was at the Little Rock Touchdown Club, which is run by our man David Basil, and mostly my guy David Basil, and he made some comments that really rubbed people the wrong way. Here they are.
To win a national championship in men's basketball moving forward. We know we're set up to win a national championship in baseball moving forward, and I think we're set up in several other sports to win a national championship. Football, where we are right now, we're not set up to win a national championship. I'll just be brutally honest with that. But I think we're set up to compete really well in the Southeastern Conference, especially now with the new revenue sharing model.
You feel that's directly related?
Okay, so I there's a couple things here. So there is some context removed from the clip, which, I mean, I think he set himself up for. But the point he was making previous to that was he had mentioned the other programs at the University of Arkansas. He talked about how good their track and field has been. You know, they put people in the Olympics. Their softball is starting to become an elite program. Their baseball has been on the precipice, as close as you can be to winning a championship without winning a championship. And their basketball, I mean, look, like I know you say what you want about Cal, but roster-wise, it's good enough. They're good enough to win a championship. They're playing all 8 Elite 8 teams in their non-conference because they think they're that good. And his point was then, I don't think football is at a championship level. And so let's just start there. Is that when you first heard it, did it give you pause when you heard it initially?
All I could think of was that Stephen A. clip where it's like, he's right, but you didn't have to say it. Like, he's right. Yep. Arkansas is not going to win a national championship this year, and they're probably not in a position to win one anytime soon. But as an AD, like, you don't have to say it. And how could you imagine being one of the guys in the locker room, and the guy who's in charge of your whole athletic department is like, yeah, look at all these other teams. Look at the good things that they're doing. Our football team's not quite there,
Do you think he made the point? I thought he was making the point that it was a holistic look at it, right? And I mean, look, that might even make it worse because you're talking about the coaching staff too, not just the players. But I think the point he was making was a resources point.
Oh, 100%.
That we are not equipped to have we don't have the resources for football. And I saw some people taking the quote as, how are you competitive in the SEC and competitive, for national, like you can't compete for a championship, but you're competing in the hardest conference. He meant a competitive SEC program.
Yes, he didn't say they were competing to win the SEC. He was saying they could compete and win a few games in the SEC.
They're not going to be at Chad Morris embarrassing. And so I thought that people kind of missed from the beginning. I thought there wasn't context. I do think, though, I saw Joe Nichols, who is a country singer, Sunny in 75, for those of you who don't know. He's on our show, and he's Arkansas fan, and he had a really good measured take. And he's made this point multiple times. Joe is a very good PR brain. I mean, he's been a country singer for a while, right? And manicuring your image throughout a career, I think, would give you some pretty good perspective on how to do things like that. And his point is that if you're admitting you have problems, you're adding to the problems, and then we're not seeing, is there a clear set of solutions?
Well, and if the idea is, we don't have enough money, we don't have enough resources to compete with these other programs, like, you don't say that, because if I'm someone who's potentially going to give to that program, to me it sends a message of, why would I give my money, or why would I continue to give my money if the money that I've been giving is not going toward building a competitive championship level program?
Yeah, I think the other side of that too, we saw Kenny Dillingham, I think this year, said what number 12 team in the country doesn't have a practice facility built, something along those lines. And so, like, there are two sides of it. There is almost a coach. The coach can motivate and be like, "Get off your asses and go."
And it's important to note he's sitting in a room of older donor kind of people from Little Rock,
right?
And trying to give the message of, "Hey, we're not quite there, but if you can help us get that next step."
That didn't land though, right?
But it didn't land.
Right.
But you can kind of see that was the message.
The thing is that he didn't execute it all the way. But I actually, more I've thought about it, I don't mind an AD being honest. And I saw John Neighbors, no relation, who used to work here at the radio station and then works in Northwest Arkansas, say, "Lie to me." And that's the question I want to ask. Everybody's like, "Well, talking about Arkansas." But whoever you're a fan of out there, if you're listening, ask yourself, do you want your athletics director to lie to you? And to what end? Like, what is the feeling that you want to have? Because, I don't, like, if you're a smart football fan, like, what your team is capable of. You know what I mean? Like, as somebody who is a Missouri guy, like, I know what I've watched the last 2 years. Missouri is capable of building a roster that's good enough to make the college football playoff. But I think once they make it, it'll look much like it does for Indiana, right, last year. Or, Cincinnati, when the rubber met the road, they were competitive in that game with Alabama, but it didn't ultimately work out. TCU in not TCU round 2, but there's a lot of teams that have made it and then ultimately did, falling flat. How many semifinal games do we have in the 4-team era that were duds, right? And so that's where I think the program is. Arkansas is nowhere near that. I'm not saying that they couldn't get to that, but there are steps to this. There's not just national championship or bust. That's actually not. There's a class.
There's tiers
system.
to it.
Yes, and now the middle class is kind of getting the upper middle class kind of getting weeded out a bit more. I guess there kind of is one now that there is a 16.
There is a possibly can make the playoffs, can't win a national championship.
Like Indiana's playing Illinois
exactly
this week, right? Like,
not national championship program necessarily.
Right.
Who knows?
Right.
But at this stage, they are playing for something. They are playing for a spot in the playoff. They are playing to be competitive in that conversation.
And, I think it's Arkansas can't. And he should have said, "Hey, but in the 12-team playoff area, there are avenues to get there, and we need your help." And I think it's fine if you're AD. Don't. The goal is to win championships. Okay, yeah, sure. But there's a lot of teams in a lot of sports who are like, "Hey man, we're pretty happy with our progress this year. We're pretty glad we made it." Like the Commanders last year, we got nuked by the I'm a Commanders fan, got nuked by the Eagles. I'm not going to sit here and be like, "Man, it's championship or bust." No, I'm pleased to see the Commanders win playoff games.
Look at Vanderbilt. We talked about them last year.
Yes.
The idea that you can be 7-6 at Vanderbilt. Those fans have been clamoring for that.
Yeah.
The few fans there are have been, and people come out of the woodwork and you see the way that having a season like that changes the support and changes the vision and the future of a program. And so there's this idea, we talk about, do you want the athletic director to lie?
Yeah.
I don't necessarily want him to lie and say, "Oh, we're in position to win a championship," when I can look at the product and say, "No, that's not true."
Right.
But what you can't have is an athletic director that isn't selling hope.
Right.
Part of the whole job of an athletic director is to sell a hope and sell a vision of what could be.
And I think because they landed Petrino, and also we're in an era now where, I've talked about it, but you're seeing these guys like the Gus Malzahns, the Bobby Petrinos, the Chip Kellys, who are aging and maybe a bit more on the prickly side of things, right? And might want to go and coach, but not have to do all the recruiting stuff. Those guys are now more available. Jim Knowles, has been kicking ass for 12 years now, and is content being the highest paid coordinator every contract renewal. Those guys are available, and I would use another example, like Talon Green, who they found. Bobby went out, and they had a financial backer that brought him back and said, "Go and find a quarterback," and he found his guy. And he found a Ferrari who, the engine might not be the most reliable in year one, right? It's a Jaguar maybe. Take your fancy fun sports car that's not super reliable. And they put a better engine in it, right? They have a really good coach. They found this really unbelievably naturally athletically gifted quarterback who's all the way in on the coordinator. He and his family are all the way in on the coordinator. And Arkansas, I don't see anybody right now who's got more natural talent and is adding a good enough performance like that. There's nobody in this draft class. Arkansas has a chance to have a number 1 draft pick. Jack, sell me hope. I was like, I got something for you right here. But that's what I'm saying. It's like, like we think Taylor Green's got a chance to be special and do some things we haven't seen before in Arkansas, at this level and the next, and we hope you invest in that. And I think that's the problem is he didn't say that. Like there wasn't a whole lot of solutions besides the rev share one, which we'll get to in a second. But I think that's the issue because sell hope, sell upside, but like I really don't mind them saying the championship thing. It didn't bother me. It really didn't bother me at all. But he didn't follow it up right.
Well, and that's the thing is that you can say we're not in a position to win a championship. We're not at that point yet, but we could be.
Right.
Like that's the part that's missing, and part of it is the context of that conversation is missing.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that this is a small 30-second clip out of a long discussion.
Yeah.
And so there is some of that's missing. That he did sell a little bit of like. Let's not.
Right. He just finished mentioning how Arkansas basketball can win a championship, and nobody gave it a second thought because yes, they can. Right.
Yeah. And so there, it's just in that moment, that one when you say we can't win a championship, you always have to follow it up with, but we could.
Right. We can do some things to approach that level.
And here are the steps that we're taking.
Yeah.
And this is gonna go into revenue share because it almost feels like we're gonna wait and see if this is the thing that kind of figures it out.
So
as opposed to here are the steps we're proactively taking.
Oh, and that leads perfectly to this. He mentioned rev sharing. And there is this idea that for some reason people aren't fighting it. I've heard it not just in Arkansas media, other places. The idea that the gap gets closed. So I always say like, okay, if Arkansas is currently at, and this is just what we're saying, or your school, if Kansas State is currently at a Oklahoma State, let's go there, right? Let's just say Oklahoma State compared to Oklahoma is at a $5 million deficit, right? Or $10 million deficit. Now let's just go 10, it's a round number, in NIL. And then everybody gets $20 million in rev sharing. Well, Oklahoma State now has $20 million. Oklahoma's got $30 million. So you've got more money than you had, but your gap to your opponents is still the same. The only thing that could change that is A, you start giving more, or some combination of B, maybe some people see the rev share money and they don't want to give as much of theirs because they're like, well, you've got some money to spend now. But here's the problem with that. If the salary cap goes up in sports, guess what goes up? The salaries. So the kids and the representatives know, well, you all have more money now. So give us that money. Now, there's no salary cap and whatnot. There's no super max, where it's, there's no franchise tag,
yeah.
Right? But if all the people acknowledge that there's more money available, they're going to ask for more money. So I don't understand how it levels a playing field because here's the thing. You might be able to fight for individual kids, but if you fight up a weight class against Texas for a kid, you're draining the rest of the money you have for other kids. So you might be able to compete for higher level guys, but as we see, football is not a one-man operation, obviously.
Well, I do think part of the idea is that theoretically, once you have revenue sharing, the NIL numbers are going to go down because they're only going to be, quote unquote, I'm using my fingers here in the quotation marks very affirmatively here, legitimate deal, illegitimate deals are going to go away. I don't know exactly how well that's going to be policed. I don't think that there's evidence that it has been.
It's just what happened before, right?
Yeah, I mean, like,
but now the kids are actually being paid.
And so I do think that there is this idea, and that's part of what Hunter was talking about yesterday, was this idea that theoretically, moving forward, the revenue sharing will be the pot. And NIL will not be as big of a factor because they'll have to be legitimate NIL deals.
But I mean,
do I think that's right?
But
no.
Here's the thing.
But,
all right, let's just say that we're competing for kids on signing day or a transfer kid. The rev share money is not going to be the thing that pushes them over the top. It's going to be you calling, like, if you're in a fight for a kid and he's assigned tomorrow, you're not like being like, what can we do like jiu-jitsu wise with a cap to make things happen? What we're going to do is call a donor and be like, hey, look.
Hey, I found your company's new spokesperson.
Yeah, I'll get your company tattooed on my butt if you give me $200 to get over $2,000 to get this kid here. And that's how it was before, right? They'd call some, you'd see kids flip, and my question was always the kid didn't just wake up and decide the facilities were better at one school than the other. You know what I mean? Something happened there at the end. and stuff changes. Sometimes money becomes available because one kid drops or whatever. But I think that's the idea that it's going to be more even is not true, because this is like soccer right now, right? Like European soccer, there is no salary cap. So the schools that are like the Saudi zone, the Emirates zone, the Manchester Cities, and the teams like that are always going to have more money because they're distributing the same amount of TV money to everybody. Now, if your talent evaluation is good and you have good staff, I mean, like maybe, but you're still at a deficit. Like you have not changed your situation in relation to other people. Your situation has changed, but not in relation to your competition. And I feel like people are missing that. I mean, do you get that sense? Because how can you preach that if the same schools you're behind are getting that money too?
Well, like I said, the only way it makes sense is if you think that their advantage through NIL is going to diminish,
right?
Which I don't think is necessarily going to be the case.
You don't think LSU fans are going to stop getting their money?
Exactly.
Right.
And so, and they will find a way. There will always be that third lane that Hunter talked about of ways that you can convince kids to come to your school.
Yeah.
And so the rich will get not necessarily richer, but as everybody gets richer, the rich also get richer.
It's good though, because it's given schools Texas Tech is crushing it on the recruiting side of things. You talk about momentum, like that is a school, and they you can say what you want about Tech, but if you're going to take a swing at it, they're doing it the right way because they are very aware of who they are. They know they're in love. You covered football in Texas. Lubbock is not a super populated place. Getting kids. Ryan Leaf one time joked, it's like, they would draw the curtains in the bus from the airport when they took you to Washington State because Pullman's not close to a whole lot of stuff. But they're building great facilities, and they're like, hey, we know we have to overpay to get you here. We're willing to do it. Come be a part of this energetic, fun thing we're building, and we're going to compensate you plenty. We're not just selling you vision. We're going to give you the money to be a part of it.
And maybe down the road, once that becomes wins, if it becomes wins, then suddenly you become a place that people want to go to.
Right.
And that's the idea, is you almost have to make that investment up front to create the culture and the brand around your program. Right. And this is, Arkansas, we talk about how they've got other programs. Like, think about all the Tyson Chicken money that's coming into basketball and Coach Cal and funding that and making it a destination place again for people to come. That's suddenly then the money becomes less important because suddenly you become a destination.
Yeah.
And so I do think that there is almost like you have to take the leap, take the plunge, and hope it works out.
It's funny. I had to think that Pittman might, if he heard this the other day, Sam Pittman at Arkansas, if he heard Hunter tell a story about Frank Fletcher, one of the donors, and he said Frank wouldn't mind me telling the story. He might now, because what he did was he said that I've given my money to football, I've committed to Taylor and Green and everything, and if Cal calls me, I'm not going to give him any money. He said Cal called him, and then he called Hunter back and said, yeah, I gave him money. It's that easy for Cal. I mean, he's got track record too, but it's like, like you said, winning begets winning, but you have to build that foundation first. And Texas Tech knows it's going to be, there's no coach out there except maybe for Kirby. I think you could just look at the Eagles defense and be like, you want to go do that?
Yeah.
Like you want to go win, you want to win here and win there. Cause that's what we do. That's, that we produce Keely Ringos and we produce Jacoby Deans and Jordan Davises, and we just print them out, come be a part of that. Sure. But I don't think there's many other guys who can sell that right now. And so you gotta sell a combination of things. You gotta I don't think all these kids are going to my alma mater, Missouri, because they like the guy. Same thing, Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly is not super likable, but he's a good coach, and I'm sure they're taking care of those kids. And I think that's kind of the big key. It's going to come down to finding somebody. Lane Kiffin, Ole Miss, great example, right? I mean, they have crushed it in the portal and in recruiting. So I think it's all about that. But ask yourself, let us know in the comment section and tweet us, do you want your AD to lie to you? Because I'm like, yes, or well, no. I'm saying no, and then pump sunshine on individual stuff. What about you?
No, I'm with you. I don't want them to lie to me and try to convince me that they are something that they're not, but I do want them to lie to me about what they think it could be.
Yes.
Even if you don't think that you have it lined up to have things work in the future, that's where I want you to lie to me.
All right, so now let's go talk about somebody special that you and I have been watching. His name is Jaron. I forget which one it is, but JKS. Keawe-Sagapolutele is how you pronounce his last name. Freshman quarterback at Cal. So the reason why I think this is exciting and fun for a lot of reasons. Number one, do you remember when Cal talked about maybe thinking about how their football program, what it is, what is it, how much do we care? Their students have responded, by the way. They've been fantastic. And I think Justin Wilcox is a very good coach. They have found, do you have a comparison in your mind for when you watch him, what you think?
No, honestly, like when I watch, I mean, it's hard not to, whenever you turn on Cal, not think of so many great Cal quarterbacks that have come before. You think of like a Jerry Goff, like an Aaron Rodgers, I mean, his poise as a freshman. It's funny, Josh, I heard a lot of people say, oh, who is this guy? He came out of nowhere. He was a guy who had a lot of traction coming into school. Yeah. But then it's fun for me because as someone who like actually covers college football on a day-to-day, I go to the Arkansas-Alabama A&M game to start the season, cover that all day. Well, the only games that are still on by the time that I'm done with work is Cal football. So I've consumed a lot more Cal football this year than normal just because those Pac-12 after darks or ACC, whatever we're calling it. Yeah. Like it's
a pack with two C's.
He's had a cool spotlight on him here to start the season. It's been fun to watch.
And he's left-handed. He says he's 6'3". He looks taller than that.
Yeah.
Like he looks really, really tall. And when you watch him throw, I remember there was a drive a couple years ago when Tampa was playing the Texans. And Stroud had to go 90 yards, I think, and it's a minute and a half left, and he did it in 58, and he's just ripping the ball over the field. Everything's on a rope. And when you watch this kid throw, everything's on a rope. Now, there's going to be a moment where he bites off more than he can chew and tries to make throws he can't, but right now, he likes to move around, but he's really good at reestablishing. He sets his feet, and he knows he can uncork it. He knows that when he sets his feet, there's nowhere he can't get the ball to. And it's funny because, we talk about all these first-time starters, and this guy is, and this is not just, their competition's not been very good, but, like, this guy is just, it's like he checks the boxes. Like, if you're an NFL scout, I'll see you in 2 years. Like, I don't even need to watch your freshman year tape. Because, it's just like, I'm going to see what happens in 2 years, and, we'll see your development and whatnot. But, like, this guy is going to be a star. He already is kind of a star, and it's funny to see that evaluation of football is hard. It's really, really hard. And there are guys, we think DJ Lagway is supposed to be awesome. And he's, throwing
5 interceptions against LSU.
Worst picks you've ever seen. But for a program to talk about shuttering itself and to have somebody who looks like they could be a program-changing guy. Like, what a weird turn and what an exciting turn for a program.
Well, and a guy who bet on himself in going to Cal in the first place said, I want to go somewhere that I can make an impact as a freshman. Like, we talk about this idea of the portal and this idea of guys chasing opportunities and not wanting to sit behind somebody and quitting on programs so that they can go find playing time elsewhere. Right. Like, this is what that looked like. This is why kids do it.
Yes.
Like, this is an example of why kids do that, is they bet on themselves, they believe that they have the opportunity, and he is seizing it in every bit. Now, I'm a little hesitant to, like, crown him, a player of the year or whatever, just because I think we saw with Cal last year, they started off the season really well. We thought Jaden Ott was the greatest player in the country, he was doing incredible things, and then by the end, they kind of came back to earth a bit,
right?
And so he's been really impressive so far. One thing we always see with freshmen, though, is how well can you sustain it for 12 games?
Yeah, luckily for them, their schedule, they join a host of teams in the oh my god, how did this happen brigade, where they we've got actually the schedule pulled up now here. Let's go to it. They have got this week, they've got San Diego State on the road, and then they've got Boston College on the road at 2:30 in Chestnut Hill, when they don't look very good this year. Duke and Carolina come to them. If it's basketball, you'd be worried. They're on the road against Virginia Tech on a Friday night, which, it's a tough environment ostensibly, but Vanderbilt and ODU just went in there in 2-night games and beat the brakes off them twice. New coach, we have no idea what that's like. At Louisville could be interesting, but they're reloading this year. At Stanford and then SMU. This is 10-2 territory.
Well, this is, they may be favored in every game except for Louisville. Like, it may be SMU at the end, depending on how that shakes out. But you somehow avoided Florida State, Clemson, Georgia Tech, and Miami.
What a blessing. What an absolute I mean, that's crazy that their schedule worked out that way. And the thing is that now they're going to have to go to the ACC title game and win it, right? Because this schedule's not good enough. I mean, I think say what you will about the SEC bias, but the one thing covering the conference is like there are just a lot of good teams. Like, we talked about how tough it can be in basketball in some of these leagues, like the Big 12. It's like like an easy night is going to is Kansas State, like the Octagon of Doom. You know what I mean? That's a bubble team in that league. And same thing for football now. I think for this league is like Arkansas is a lower tier team. Vanderbilt's still a lower tier team,
and they have one of the best quarterbacks
in
the country.
It's like if you catch Vanderbilt in September, you're done. I want them in November when they kind of break down. But like Taylor Green could Superman you any game. I mean. The Auburn defense could, they could always get an Auburn game where it's, hey, we won 16-13 and we played great defense and ran the ball at you. Like, it's all possible. And so the thing is that it's a lot easier to build a strong resume in the SEC. And I'm not trying to pump sunshine for them, but like, I mean, how many bad teams are in the SEC? Mississippi State, maybe they beat Arizona State. Right. I'm not saying they're good, they're good or anything, but Kentucky's not very good. I don't think.
No.
But like South Carolina might not be what we thought, but their defense looks pretty good, and they've got a quarterback who's
if he's healthy, very
pretty
good.
Special. Yeah, the rest of the team not great, but special. So like that's one of those things we have to beat, and I'm not worried about the SEC bias, Jack. Are you? You think it's going to be like a? Last year it was bad, but like I think this year the conference is at a point where I think it's good enough that I'm not, unless something will happen down the line, but I'm not seeing a team I'm like they're gonna get hosed.
Well, I mean, the problem is always going to be that they're at a point where the middle class or the upper middle class of the SEC is all good enough and all at the same enough level that I could see a situation where you have 4 9-3 teams at the end of the year, where the question is, do we pick one of those kind of like last year, where it's like, do you put Alabama, do you put South Carolina, do you put Ole Miss, or do you give
Miami
10-2, Miami? Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of the situation that almost feels like, do you put in a 10-2 Cal?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
or an 11-2 Cal,
They have to. Yeah. The thing is, if they win the ACC championship,
well, I'm saying, you're 11-1. You go in, you lose the conference championship. Does an 11-2 Cal get in over a 9-3 SEC team?
I don't.
That's
the
question.
Yeah, no, I just think it's like you see these SEC schedules, and look, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy because of like if you keep everybody ranked high, like then all your games are high ranked,
and then you can't fall very far, and so you're still a high ranked loss.
And we don't see any context to get outside the conference. And you can say a Big Ten's won the championship last 2 years. Look, the Big Ten's a top heavy conference. The reason why Penn State looks as good as they do, and Ohio State is as good as they are, and Michigan is because, especially with Penn State and with Ohio State, they have guys that play differently than everybody else in the conference. Like the guys at Oregon and Ohio State and Penn State have on the outside. Well, Penn State not on the outside last year, but you know what I mean? Like some of the guys they have look and play a lot, and especially for Penn State on defense and for Ohio State on defense. Michigan is kind of like the Georgia of up there, I feel like, it's just built on running game, strong defensive front, blocking, tackling.
Well, it's the most old school Big Ten of the bunch.
Right. But they've got guys, Underwood looks like, like just a freak athlete, legit stud. And all those guys they had at running back are the same thing too. The SEC is a lot more of that across the board just because there's more guys like that in this part of the country. But the top, I'm not saying the Big Ten's the worst conference because of it, but it's a less deep conference.
I would say the difference between this year and last year feels like the SEC got more marquee early season wins than we saw last year.
Right. It to help build their case.
That's going to help. And, if it wasn't for Alabama just dropping one at Florida State, like, you have LSU over Clemson, you've got Mississippi State over Arizona State. Like, you have all these different little...
Yeah, touch point. Oklahoma over Michigan.
Auburn
over Baylor.
Exactly. You have all these touch points across the conference, whereas last year you had a lot of early season question marks.
Yeah.
That made it to, LSU goes out and loses to USC week 1. Like, there were so many of those type of games last year that made you be able to question the conference, whereas this year they came out and they won the games that they needed to win.
It's a great point. I really feel strongly, like I've got that feeling right now that a 9-3 SEC team is going to make it this year pretty easily. Like I've just, and because I think it's to your point, they racked up so many of those wins though. Like you really buy yourself a lot of grace. And the thing is, it's funny because those early season games are really, honestly now my opinion's changed. They're benefits to schedule because they'll write them off. It's a tax write-off if you lose. That was early in the season, and then if you win, it's it's notching the belt.
And it doesn't matter how good the other team ends up being. Like that LSU win on the road over Clemson is going to be really good win, perceptionally, no matter how bad Clemson ends up being.
And we also have a committee that, not saying it's all the same, but they've shown in the past with Florida State, they care about form. Right, so Florida State's lost their quarterback. We don't care about resume; we care about form. So that would allow them to write off an Alabama performance against Florida State right early in the year, and then if they're playing better at the end, they house Auburn in the Iron Bowl, give them a pass.
Now I am interested. Putting it back in the context of Cal, I do think that there is an opportunity for a team like a Cal to make a really special run, and be like an SMU at the end, where it's really hard to blame a team that has one loss, and that one loss was in the conference championship.
Barely. They led the entire way.
Like, it's hard to discount a team like that. Yeah. And even if your schedule is weak, even if you end up going and losing a game in the playoff, pretty handedly, the reality is
Indiana last year. Indiana lost one game to Ohio State. The rest of everything looked really, really good. And they lost in the first round. But you know what?
And
they deserve to be.
You know what could be interesting? Like we said, Cal misses all of those really good ACC teams. Is there a reality where Cal is like an Indiana,
right,
where they have a really good record because they didn't play any of the good teams, but they're not good enough to make the conference championship game, so they don't pick up that second loss, or that extra loss?
Totally. Yeah, that's a good question about that. It's a great question because and once again, it matters what this committee values.
Well, and it's hard to make playoff predictions in week 4.
Right. I think
let's bump the brakes for a second.
I think there's a conversation to have about it just because it's like, hey, things open up for you. And because it's 12 teams now, like, you can lose games.
Yeah.
Like, Notre Dame is, people are like, are they done? I'm like, man, you're going to sit here and tell me if they rip off 10 in a row, they're not going to be like, here come the Irish. Here come the Irish, right? Like, that's going to be hard for me to see. All right, so this week, this is a really not a very, I wouldn't say it's a super deep week, and we're looking at our friends here from the Draftkings Sportsbook. Also, you can use that code NEIGHBORS, NEIGHBORS, NEIGHBORS. You bet $5, you get 300 in free bets once that first bet clears. So it's worth doing. If you thought about signing up, you guys can do that now, and we'll show you all also their interface. And once again, folks, what you want with betting apps is a strong interface. And I'm dead serious here, and theirs is as good as anybody's. So, Texas Tech, Utah. It's time. It's time for us to see what you bought, right? It's time to really pull the drape off the new vehicle. It's a road test. Kyle Whittingham's bunch has been a very difficult group to beat, particularly in Utah. It's one of the best home field advantages in all of college football. And it's exciting to see what Joey McGuire's team can do. I want to see how good their defense is, because this is the one thing that will define how good they end up being is, look, can you defend at a high level? Because we know they can always score. They're going up against Devon Dampier, who's been really, really good and strong so far for Utah. But this is kind of like a Big 12 championship game early in the season, because this is a big game for positioning and tiebreakers on the line and everything. Big noon kickoff too for the Big 12,
which means a 10 a.m. kickoff in Utah, just as we all dreamed of it.
Out there, right?
Woo, boy, they're gonna have a hard time. The energy drinks will be flowing, right?
Yeah. Your thoughts about Tech so far?
Well, I think that untested is kind of the idea that we, as someone who covers UAPB, look, that week 1, that's not a game. Right. That's not even worth putting on the field. Like that's get some reps against someone in a different colored jersey. Like, this is the opportunity, like you said, for Tech to prove what they have. And the problem for them is that like what they have, I think in a lot of cases is young. I think in a lot of cases, is unproven. And so to go into an environment like this, like these are the kind of games that make or break a season because, we touch on it so much. College football is a vibes game. And when you have that much invested into a team, that much invested into a program, when the results don't come, the vibes change very quickly. And I think that this is one of those games that if you can win it, it sets the tone for a season. But if you lose it, things start to scramble and can get very rough very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because I remember when Baron Morton came out of high school, and what a big deal it was they got him. And he's kind of followed the Shuck path where he's not been able to stay healthy. And because of, the Shuck kind of in and out deal, I mean, he was also a part of that in and out deal.
Yeah.
So his playing time has kind of been inconsistent, but this is a guy who's not a senior. And, I'm still I'm excited to see him because I feel like he's a young player still, but he's been around so long that he kind of knows the deal at this point in time. And I'm excited to see them in that environment because this environment plus a Kyle Whittingham defense will be a very good test of how good, how far along they are.
Well, and styles make fights.
Yeah.
And, stylistically, Texas Tech and Utah historically and now, it's a style making fight.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. I can't wait to see. I can't wait to see Gus and Clout in the call. That's a 3-point spread. Totals at 56.5 on that. Iron Skillet this week. It's going away.
Boo.
Hate that. We really hate that. This game's always a 7-point spread, no matter who it is. TCU. Potentially good. I know we spent a lot of time in the Big 12. I just want to mention that they look pretty good. Auburn, Oklahoma. So this is weird because Oklahoma, Michigan to me was like a next tier battle. And I'm like, here Oklahoma is again another next tier battle. Because I don't think OU, when I watched them against Michigan, I didn't think this is like a top. I don't think they're a top 5 or maybe top 10 team, but I don't think they're a top 5 team. Like they got a really good quarterback, but I mean they don't look like everybody else, like Georgia and even Texas up front. Those
physically schools. They aren't as imposing when they get off the bus.
Yes, yeah, but they've got some playmakers. I mean,
exactly,
clearly, obviously. Then Auburn, they haven't played anybody since the Baylor game, right? But I mean, better than we thought.
Yeah, can run the ball a bit.
It's Jackson Arnold. Yeah, revenge game, correct.
Exactly. That's the thing that's going to be so exciting is just to see the way that he performs in that environment and to see the way that environment doesn't welcome. Like it was kind of weird the way it all went down and the way that he left there because I don't think anyone was necessarily upset that he was gone, especially by the time Mateer came in.
The ironic part is that happened the same way around with Dylan Gabriel.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, they chased Gabriel out to welcome in the second coming.
Uh-huh.
And then he got chased. It'd be a really, a fork in the eye to Oklahoma if it happened twice. Yeah. But no, I mean, you get excited for kids and you just hope that he plays well in that environment.
Yeah.
Because he didn't play that well. But he didn't play well in that environment very often last year.
No.
Michigan's playing Nebraska this week, so this is exciting. I think the spread in this game is very reflective. It's a 2.5-point spread. It's very but Michigan's favored on the road with a freshman quarterback. It's very reflective of who Nebraska's been. They have been the school that is close, but
not quite.
No cigar for a while. I mean, and I don't think it would be the biggest win in the world because Michigan's not what they were a couple years ago. But this would be maybe the best win Matt Rule's had at Nebraska.
I think you can make an argument for that.
But they're getting the home environment. It's going to be awesome. It's a 2:30 game. Totals of 46.5, so we're expecting low scoring. But does the Patrick Mahomes impression pay off, Jack, this week?
No.
Do you think Michigan wins?
I think Michigan wins. One thing, Matt Rule has not historically fared well against top 25 opponents, whether it was during his time at Baylor or during his time at Nebraska. So until we see his teams are really good at beating the teams they're supposed to beat, and they're not very good at beating the teams that they're not supposed to beat.
Yeah, we'll touch on one more. Apple Cup is this week, too. So shout out to Washington. Washington State still keeping the rivalry going.
I'm looking at UTCU and SMU.
Yeah, and then let's see. What is this? Is the so really excited for the big ACC rivalry, Virginia-Stanford, right? This is why we play the game. The nerds, the Atlantic Coast Conference from Palo Alto to Charlottesville. That is the Atlantic Coast right there for you. All right, night game, wanted to mention here. This is kind of the big one. One of the big ones, at least. We had Indiana, Illinois. We mentioned that earlier. I can't speak. Are you familiar with these two teams?
No, not enough.
Okay, not enough. All right. Neither am I. South Carolina and Missouri. This is a really important game for both of these teams. For South Carolina, I mean, if Sellers doesn't play, we kind of know how this thing's going to go. If they lose 2 games this early, all the designs they had about this year goes out the window, even if Sellers is around, right? Because I mean, they're not going to run the table. It's just you're going to lose some games eventually. And so I mean, the opportunity has come knocking for Missouri in this game. 10.5, I think it's far too big. I would take South Carolina. I would gobble up all those points. I like that for them. I mean, I think it's Missouri last year. They played Oklahoma really close, and Missouri ostensibly was a better team than OU, but at home they didn't play them that close. But this is a kind of a loser leaves town match. I mean, Missouri's got a chance, but still, if you mention how weak the schedule is and you lose, it's not like it's only one game. Well, your schedule was weak, so I wouldn't want to lose a game at this point. South Carolina, they cannot really afford a loss if they want to go to the playoff.
Yeah, I mean, South Carolina, you do remember last year they had early season struggles and came back and recovered from those. Yep. So it's not necessarily dead. It's not necessarily dead, but you're definitely, like in Call of Duty, whenever the screen is gray and you're waiting on one of your friends to come revive you, like that's where South Carolina would be if they lost this week. And
they had that really awful stretch coming up.
Yeah.
Where, I mean, it is like they have a stretch where they're playing, I think it's 6 ranked teams in a row. Now, a lot of SEC teams have that as well. But, I mean, for South Carolina especially, Vanderbilt wasn't ranked. They are now. But they've got Missouri, Kentucky, then at LSU, Oklahoma, Alabama, at Ole Miss, at Texas A&M. Not only are all those teams, all 5 of those I just mentioned, in the top 25 ranked, they're all in the top 15. And, I mean, I think most of those we'd all agree, A&M
are going to stay there.
Yeah, I mean, Ole Miss is probably the only one that I would say is going to fall out. Or I think we'll have a chance at it. But, yeah, this must win for them. So people are saying, the slate's not great this weekend. I resent that. Also, we found out how dumb the AP poll is anyway. So, there's no ranked matchups. Well, you hate the rankings anyway. So how about you and I, you and I will always find the good games.
And also, college football's at its best in the margins.
Yeah, totally. These are the weekends that you enjoy. Plus, it's stuff on the line.
Every time that we say that this is a bad weekend, there end up being all these great close finishes at the end. Part of the name, we don't necessarily have the name brand matchups, but man, it's gonna be fun. Yeah, it's gonna be fun. And once again, these games are really meaningful. I mean, it's very meaningful for Matt Rule playing Michigan, and beating Michigan. That'd be a massive win. And they're trying to build right now. They're trying to go tier to tier to tier. SMU, TCU. I mean, TCU. I was worried about Sonny Dykes and kind of where that thing was headed after the flare they had the 1 year. They play SMU, and Rhett Lashley and company are kind of on the ropes after they lost Baylor.
Baylor, right? So back-to-back rivalry game, or in 2 week span. So, all right, Jack, get you out of here. Where can the folks find you and your work and all of its variety?
Jack Allen TV on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it nowadays. Also, you can find our stuff on KATV if you live in Arkansas, or KATV.com.
All right. I am Josh Neighbors. You can find me at Josh Neighbors _ and at CC Podcast JN. Like the video, leave your comments, subscribe to the channel, and find us wherever you guys get your podcast. We'll talk at you all mañana.